And here's a look at where markets ended the week after we got the first jobs report of the year and the last one under the Biden administration. Much weaker than expected. Only 143,000 jobs were added compared to the 170,000 that were expected, and way down from the 307,000 revised number of jobs added in December. Now, the unemployment rate did tick lower to 4%. Joining me now is former Home Depot and Chrysler CEO Bob Nardelli and former Trump campaign senior economic advisor Steve Moore. Steve, the final jobs report under Bidenomics. Your reaction?
Yeah, Cheryl, it is the end of an era, and I guess as a conservative, I'd say it's the end of an era that has not been very good for workers. This report was pretty poor. There were some upward revisions from the previous months, but the big issue really is, are we going to change the composition of our employment in the future? We've talked about this month after month on this show, that you have a problem where so much of the employment under Biden was government workers, Cheryl. And what we need to see under Donald Trump, and I think we will, is more private sector employment, because those are the workers that really add value to the economy.
I think you will. And Bob, we talked about this on Mornings with Maria, Friday morning, the fact that you've got, this is the last time that we're going to see that government worker number. I mean, we added 32,000 government jobs for the month of January. But that whole story is going to change beginning with the month of February as DOGE gets to work.
There's no question, Cheryl. From my perspective, just to add to Steve, is if you look at last year, I think government ended the year the second highest employer. And you look at this month of 36. So we're seeing a dramatic cut, as Steve had projected there, number one. Number two, if you look at the job creation in not hospitality, but hospitals and healthcare. And then you look at retail, 34,000, probably a little bit of the overhang. And again, to see the government jobs come down. I think the thing that really shocks me is that when you look at the adjustments that you and Steve have talked about, Cheryl, if that was a CEO, he would be fired, and that's just running a company. Here we've got these numbers coming out that are affecting a country, right? And so how do we put up with these deceptively correct numbers that they talk about month after month and try to have an accurate perspective for the Fed to make the right kinds of adjustments? Now, the average wage going up to $35.80, again, I think that's a big reflection on the union contracts. 40, 50, we saw dock workers 60%. What's going to happen? AI is really going to hammer the white-collar jobs to be able to offset costs, your SG&A in the workforce, to offset those costs by using AI to get rid of white-collar jobs is what we're going to see. So I hope, Steve, and you are right, is what's going to happen going forward.
No, I'm glad you brought up that wage issue, because if you would have seen a weaker wage number in the report, then that would have given the market more of a case for the Fed to have an earlier rate cut. But that did not happen. So now we've got to look ahead to CPI next week. There are definitely growing concerns over the threat of higher inflation. Two Federal Reserve officials, you've got Austin Goolsbee and Thomas Barkin, they're warning that Trump's tariffs are going to be inflationary. Steve, to you first. What do you make of those comments? Remember, though, Austin Goolsbee used to work for Barack Obama. Just want to point that out to our viewers.
Right. Well, look, I'm not a big tariff fan. I am a big Trump supporter. But I think it's not accurate to say that Trump's policies are inflationary. In fact, I think Trump will bring inflation down. By the way, I think you're going to see a fairly big number on inflation, because I'm looking at these commodity prices. They've continued to rise. I think we could see inflation in the 4% range, which is a lot higher than the Fed target, which is why I don't understand all this talk about lowering interest rates. But look, Trump is going to increase the energy supply. He is going to reduce regulations on our businesses. He's going to try to cut all this unnecessary spending. All of these things are extremely positive for economic growth and for reducing the rate of inflation. So I don't see this as being a long-term problem. I think we're going to get back to the 2% target rate that the Fed has set under Trump.
Okay, Bob, final word.
Yeah, let me give you a personal perspective. When we have a senator stand up and talk about his beer and his avocados might be up a little bit of inflationary in exchange for protecting the tariff, as a father, I've had 2 home invasions, my daughter and my son. And just last night in Buckhead, one door away, home invasion, police locked down the entire area. We have a lawless society. We must get it protected. If tariffs helps us do that, I'm all for it, even if it costs a little bit more.
Oh, it's terrible, Bob. I'm so sorry to hear that. Gosh, Barb Nardelli, I'm glad you and your family are safe. Steve Moore, gentlemen, thank you so much. It was great to see both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl.